AKAPADers, welcome back to the Film Buff Podcast. We're continuing our thread of football movies, and we have the origin movie, the beginning of professional football, Leatherheads, 2008, starring and directed by Geroge Clooney. This is a good one. I love this movie. Let's go.
Camera speed, sound production, take one. Action!
And welcome back, AKAPADers. Hopefully, if everything has gone well, you're catching this. You're catching this episode at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, we're still playing with our dual day drops because, as you guys know, we've been teasing this for a while. We've been working overtime to get way ahead of our podcast publishing and our YouTube publishing so we can be opened up for more opportunities, content, collaborations, and all these fun things. And if you guys enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy the work of myself, Peter A DeLuca AKAPAD, please go to akapad.com, bookmark that website. This is where you're going to get a catalog of all of these episodes. You're going to get hubs, different ways to explore all my content across all of social media. Pretty soon there, we'll be dropping a exclusive podcast only available on that site, and I want to say YouTube, but it's a video series. So we'll be doing what am I talking about? There's going to be a lot happening on akapad.com. So before we get into this movie, just go there, bookmark that site, go back to whatever app you're catching me on, and give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a good review, because these are the things. This is how we trigger and fight the algorithm, because we know the algorithm is an AI from the future trying to slow down the AKAPAD army. So here it is. So before we get into this movie, we have to frame it in a particular way. There's a lot of ballyhoo and love, and I would say really good attempts on the beginning movies. This is an origin movie. This is an origin movie of professional football. Will Ferrell is in a movie called Semi-Pro, not Semi-Tough. We did Semi-Tough previously as a football movie on this channel. Semi-Tough is the formation and beginning of the National Basketball Association, and a lot of the business, the way how that league came together, and even though it's a comedy, the struggle of a dwindling league and some of the ownership and what some of those owners needed as in a buyout, it's all expressed in Semi-Pro. This movie is very similar because we get this angst, we get this idea, and it's laughable within the movie that someone can become a professional football player. And we beg the question, what are the other individuals? Who are they? Like, what type of person doesn't get paid a lot of money, is in a dying league, sometimes does not get paid, but wants to play football? And it's a growing sport of little protection. It's muddy. It's a little bit like rugby, but it's the beginning. And we really get the sense. We get fantastic, like Oscar-level music from Randy Newman. This movie looks like it's of the period. The most credit for that goes to Geroge Clooney. He gave a thumbs up on all the right things in all the right frames to sell this. The beginning of this movie is reminiscent of Seabiscuit. It brings us into an era very quickly. A lot of period movies on this level need a strong credit sequence. They need a way to pull in the audience and let them know we're of a time. We get Newton Siegel. I'm just going through some of his movies right now. Newton Thomas Siegel. He's our cinematographer. I'll say he came on my radar, and at the time I didn't even know. 1995, The Usual Suspects. He's a Bryan Singer cinematographer, but The Trigger Effect, directed by David Koepp, apt Pupil, another Bryan Singer movie. Three Kings, David O. Russell. That's another George Clooney. That's a George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg movie. Three Kings is absolutely fantastic. Spike Jonze is in that. Then we get X-Men, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, another George Clooney movie. The cinematography for that, I want to say, Thomas Siegel watched JFK and took so many notes from JFK. Oliver Stone's JFK. And the list goes on. It really does. It's a long list. So we have expertise all around. Then we get this idea. Can we take Jim from The Office? Because Jim from The Office is in this movie. John Krasinski. And can we make him into our hero to launch his film career? That's really how Clooney positions him. The way he shot, the lines, his character. He's a stolen valor. The press ran away with his war story. Becomes somewhat of a national figure, and his base, his fan base, is following him into pro football, and really putting pro football on the map. I assume he's modeled after Jim Thorpe. I'm not 100%. But he's like the infallible, perfect bully. And we get that sense in this movie. At the end. And I don't care. We do spoilers here. At the end of this movie sticks out so well. I mean, it is one of the reasons why I love this movie. Because we get this meeting. We get the meeting of the minds at the end of the movie. And George Clooney, this is his moment. Because John Krasinski's character has been like a thorn in George Clooney's side. And the level of humor and the beats and the cadence of this humor in this movie, again, is of a time. I think it's fun. It's hilarious. The Renee Zellweger, she's also in this movie perfectly in this movie. It just works because everyone kind of gets the level of speak and quickness. But this is George Clooney's moment. He gets to get finally a leg up on the perfect golden boy, and he sacrifices all of it so that the story of John Krasinski, his character, can be maintained and the league can continue. And he, it's a great sacrifice scene. And the whole movie builds into that because we get a little bit of this angst in George Clooney. He's kind of a perfect, good looking, has a motorcycle, one amazing leather jacket, has a couple scenes with it. And he's just a day late in the book. Sure, he's a lovable hero that likes to play dirty ball. And that comes into play later where he, I'll say the biggest fault of this movie is that we don't build into the final game as we, again, football movie trope. We have to build into the final game and it has to be perfect. Meaning we have to have a team that we know is going to lose, that will win, and we have to have an invincible team that can go through them. And we don't really get that sense because George Clooney is on the team of John Krasinski, Jim from The Office. I just cannot say his last name. And what we get, though, is they break up, they're on separate teams, and then there's like a big game. And the flow of that, in my opinion, is just not quite there. But George Clooney, to win the game, does a dirty oop-de-oop because everyone's muddy and he just tricks everyone and he wins the game. And kind of like everyone knows George Clooney somewhat cheated, somewhat bent the rules, but did his Han Solo rebel scum move. And, it kind of works, it kind of doesn't. And the movie needed that. But the stronger part of the movie is George Clooney's character coming to terms with life and defeat and having to move on and not being able to do this forever. He needs to find solace in being a part of the beginning of this league, the beginning of pro football. Renee Zellweger's character has to figure out that not everything is news reporting. So we get some really good arcs. I cannot highlight the music enough. I absolutely love the music for this movie. I think this movie optically sells. I think the acting sells. I think Geroge Clooney as a director, this is one of the feathers in his caps. So, and here's the thing. When we get into, I wanted to mention this earlier, when we get into the caveat, when we discuss this movie, we have to put Geroge Clooney as a actor-director in a very high-level class. And that high-level class is Mel Gibson, who is the greatest actor-director of all time. Then we get Kevin Costner, we get Geroge Clooney, and we get Jon Favreau. That's really because Jon Favreau was in prominent things. Now, I know there's others I'm leaving out, and yes, we for our football talks, we will be discussing Friday Night Lights. If you guys are familiar with Peter Berg, who I believe at one time was helming a Dune adaptation. He's on that list, but he's not quite there because we'll say the back end of his filmography is, he's a Mark Wahlberg collaborator, and that it doesn't mean those movies aren't good. I think what is it? Deepwater Horizon or Deep Horizon. That is such a solid disaster survivor effing movie. But he's there. Patriots Day there. I'm not sure. He may have done Lone Survivor, but and his Battleship as a big fun blockbuster popcorn movie. I love Battleship. Whatever. It's got Rihanna in it. Sold. But yeah, AKA Padders. This movie's great. Going through some of the initial reviews, going through some of the my setup before I sit down to watch this level of research. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about this movie. It's a disappointment. The comedy it's not centered. It's not targeted enough. It doesn't know what type of film it wants to be. A lot of these dumb critic platitudes, and there's some truth to that at times. The movie is off balance. It is off centered, but it's so engaging and it's so much funny. What did I just say? It's so much funny. It's so much fun to watch because of the style of comedy, and it's hard to pinpoint the style of comedy because that needs to be dissected, analyzed, directed. You expect your cast to study that and to be able to hit some of these beats. Now, not every single character, lays it out on this level of comedy because you need highs and lows and you need straight characters, and that's John Krasinski, where he's just straight in this movie. He's supposed to be the perfect boy, turns out not to be. We get perfect movie tropes in this movie, and you guys all know I fully support movie tropes because they tell us where to go. They amongst themselves are their own lanterns along the way, just so we help guide the audience a little bit. But yeah, AKA Padders, 2008, Geroge Clooney, Leatherheads, solid movie, enjoyed it a ton, and it deserves to be in the catalog of great football movies.
Okay, that's a wrap.